Welcome to the Alchemy of Ascension podcast. I'm your host, Waxéla Sananda, and today I have returning guests, Gregory and Gail Hoag. Welcome, Gregory and Gail.
Oh,
Thank
thank you.
you. Thank you. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, you too. It's been we were just guessing it's been over a year
Yeah.
since the last time we spoke. And I've interviewed you, you've interviewed me for your podcast, and we actually got to meet in person in Orlando last year, and that was so special. There's something really fun, just about getting to meet people in person after you've had these online interactions. It makes it so much more
Mhm.
real to be together with people. And that was a fun event. We got to sit and have dinner and have chats, and I got to experience some of your amazing products. And I can say to my listeners that you two are two of the kindest, most loving people, and it was such a delight to be with you for that weekend. So I feel really honored that we got to spend that time together.
It is what makes it all really fun.
So much
And
fun.
yeah, and it's always amazing, like when you've had all these interactions with somebody virtually, and then you finally actually get to have flesh to flesh. And that's like, oh, that's the person. Yes.
Yeah.
I
So
love that.
much better that way. I mean,
Yeah, it is.
it kind of makes everything so much more real. Although, we're grateful to have this opportunity to share online. And so since the last time I had you on the Alchemy of Ascension, you have released a book which contains, I think you said 40 years of experience. I actually have a
Mhm.
copy of it right here, and it's beautiful. The book itself is really beautiful. I love just the imagery, and it's heavy even, like it's a solid book. It's got great pictures in it. And I was one of the lucky people that got to read it before it was released. And I wrote a review, and it's included in the book. So it was really fun to see that there too. And so today you get to share, I'm having you on to share about your book and some of the new things that you have to share since the last time that I had you on.
Wonderful.
One of the reasons that book really is heavier is that it has clay in the pages. That's what they
Really?
use to make it so they're shiny, and the images pop a lot more because we have about 72 images. We found it was really necessary when you're talking about geometry to have images and show some of the relationships. And we can go over some of those today. It's really, for me, I'm a visual learner, so I like to see pictures. I'll
Mhm.
sometimes go through a book and look at the pictures before I read it just to get a sense of what the author's doing. And in this case, we have 72 of them,
Mhm.
which is a sacred number.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
and the pictures are wonderful. It is with sacred geometry, the pictures truly are worth 1,000 words and more because they draw you in, and they're a language of their own. Just looking at those
Mhm.
images is really
Mhm.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And
Well, sacred geometry isn't something that we learned about in school. In fact, it's really fun. There are people, as we're getting out there and talking more about this and actually doing kind of like a little book club around it. And people will say, "Ah, I wish I learned geometry like this. I would have really learned so much. I would have listened." And so, I think that's one of the wonderful things about what we're bringing is what is the real value that people can tune into with this? Because geometry, math was not always everyone's favorite subject. And yet it's so essential in helping us understand the universe. And I know as a child, I used to walk around going, what is this? you know, like, do I really belong here? What's going on this planet? I wanted to understand the way creation happened. And yet what I learned in school wasn't cutting it. So Greg and I met close to 40 years ago. And honestly, sacred geometry wasn't really on my path at that point, even though I love the work of Buckminster Fuller. And so he was very much about geometry. But what was really interesting for both of us is that it was very spirit guided. We were brought to learn about this and to teach each other about it and to find those who were exceptionally knowledgeable in this field and learn from them. Mostly, however, it's been through our experiences, what we've developed, what we've shared, and then what we needed to find out, what is this? You know, what's the purpose? What's the value and meaning behind all of this? So that's really been our journey and our delight and work to figure out, now, how do we take that, everything we've been doing all these years, and put it into a book, one work? And you can't put everything into one book. So we looked at, what are the basics? How could we get started in a way that would be valuable to not only a newcomer, but people who have been around the block, who've had some experience with spirituality, metaphysics, and sacred geometry. And from the feedback, I think we've really accomplished that. So it's our unique understanding of three-dimensional sacred geometry, particularly how it relates to bringing energy into this dimension and creating form, structure, and physical reality through the principles of sacred geometry.
It's really about relationship. And that's why we start off with consciousness. And it's how consciousness relates to every aspect of creation and can be found in every aspect. And how we, as human beings, have really separated ourselves from the bigger part of who we are. You know, we focus on just this little bit of reality that we can bump into and trip over. And yet, universe is 99.99999% pure energy. And how do we relate to the bigger parts of ourselves that can't be seen, but we can tune into it? We can create relationship by using, you know, some of these tools we've talked about that are resonating with that energy, the way universe works, because universe is all about relationship. It creates harmonics between the DNA of our bodies and the way the sun and the moon and the earth dance together. And they even form some of the geometries, the moon and the earth, that relate to how our body is formed, how life is formed. So it's creating relationship. And I think that's been one of the essences that I have liked about our book, is that it helps to create relationship between our little bodies and know that we're not separate, and we can see how we're all connected and how we can start to dance together in these bigger rhythms that create a sense of connection and a sense of love and a sense of wonder, just because it's incredible the universe is doing such a marvelous job of having everything work together, and that we have kind of overlooked that in the things that we build, the things that we do in our everyday lives, and lost, you know, the wonder of that bigger picture and seeing where we're connected to it, and then actually becoming connected to it. which shifts what's going on in our lives personally.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And something I really loved about your book, speaking of relationships, is in the beginning you each had a chapter talking about your story, or you got to share kind of where you came from individually, and then how your relationship came together and developed, and then how you moved into this work together. And I found it really, really interesting and fun, especially after having met you in person, to read some of that backstory and learn about more of your history and how this all came together. And I know that sacred geometry isn't just something that you do as a business. It's really the foundation of everything you do, from what I'm aware of and from what I know of you. It's a way of life. It's a lifestyle. And in that it's not just sacred geometry, it's about bringing greater consciousness, bringing greater awareness, and having people, creating products and things that facilitate people's expansion. And, that's what I'm all about too. So I love your mission.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that's why we started the book after we told our stories. And we really wanted to introduce ourselves to people and kind of show the humanity in all of this, and some of the things that we've been through that were challenging at times in our lives. I think sometimes challenges are really the door openers for so many of us. But at the bottom of it, both of us were always wanting to make some contribution around evolving consciousness. And, when I was about 3 years old, I had this epiphany. I couldn't put it into words, in my 3-year-old, sense of language. I knew, though, that I was here to make a difference, to bring something out that could contribute to better life. And so consciousness is where we start the book out and show that even though we're talking about geometry, and a lot of people think about geometry at the very onset in more of an abstract way, but really what's fascinating about it is that this is structure that holds the integrity of consciousness. And at the base of that consciousness is love. And so when we're wandering around going, where do I belong? Where do I fit in? And all the feelings of loneliness and separation that are unfortunately, rampant in so many people's homes, communities, whatever. The truth is that we are all here together, and we are held in a structure that is impressed with love. It's all here. Our job is to allow it to really integrate into our lives, touch us deeply, and then express our lives using that resonance of love. And sometimes we get really hard lessons around that. Sometimes it means going through something like a really rough accident to find out that the greatest way of healing is to open up to the flow of love and to do it over and over and over again. And so, geometry, sacred geometry for me, it is more than, it's certainly more than just the things that we talk about. It is a way of life. It's all over our home. It's all over our land. And we built our home based on sacred geometric principles because we want to resonate with those higher levels. We want to be in connection in the highest way. And that's what this does. It creates that divine connection. And that, to me, is one of the great things that we've been able to work on all these years together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, I've heard stories about your land. I haven't personally been there, but our mutual friend Michelle had, gone there to visit, and she's, was telling me, well, Shayla, it's like walking into another dimension. Just not, it doesn't feel like the normal, way we experience just most places on the earth, because you have created that higher frequency experience there, and I'm sure in communion with the sacredness of what was there, and then what you also brought to it and built there. So it sounds wonderful where you are.
Yeah.
Ah, I love it. It keeps me connected all the time. Um, we have so many birds, and because we have a riparian habitat. And so we have in Colorado more moisture than usual, lots of frogs and lots of fun visitors, both physical and non-physical. So all of it can be worked, though. That's the interesting thing about our land, is we found out after we moved here that Spirit had set up something very special. And so we worked with the double peaks to the west of us and moved energy into a mountain behind us that we live at the base of. And that directs energy into the grid of the planet that is working with all the chambers we've built here and the things we've put into those chambers. I mean, dozens of geometries and forms, and all of this is going into the planet. And it was by design that Spirit brought us here. And even the first year, what was interesting, there were 5 or 6 mountain strikes on the spine of the mountain as it was coming down, and big fires got going, a 120-acre fire, a 60-acre fire. And I would be in my workshop and I'd hear a thunderclap, and I would go outside and it'd be a totally blue sky and one little black cloud over the base of the mountain. And I asked my guidance, what's going on? And they said, we're opening the rifts between the dimensions on this mountain so that the energy can flow through in everything that we're doing more profoundly. And there is a large quartz outcropping at the center of this mountain, at the eye of the mountain. And a year after all this had gone on, there was a lightning strike there, and firefighters had to climb the mountain to put the fire out, but it was to activate the whole thing, which a lot of quartz, there's a lot of gold in the area, and a lot of copper on our land too, where the rocks are blue-green. So it's just amazing watching all of the things come together. And our home is built on this cliff that goes underneath our home that is 300 million-year-old sandstone with quartz balls that are red quartz, pink quartz, that are all through it, that are rolled up in it. It's really fun. A sacred geometer, Keith Critchlow, who's now passed, pointed that out to me years ago and said, what incredible energy is in just this piece of your property. And so it's been fun playing with all of it.
Wow, I imagine I hadn't heard all of that before, and how magical that you get to be there, the stewards of this incredible high frequency place. And I did hear you mention something about physical and non-physical beings. Do you have any stories you can share about maybe esoteric or non-physical beings that have shown up on the land?
Well, I think to start with, everything that we've created with the tools that we've been designing and creating all these years has been a co-creation between Gregory, myself, the people who actually physically do it, and then the non-physical people, our guides, that share information with us. And so it's a collaboration. And, I think that's really an important thing for anyone who is open to working on higher dimensional levels. And the more that you read our book, we go into the importance of being a multi-dimensional being. That's who we are. When we recognize that, we are not just this physical body, we see that there's so much access that we have. The non-physical beings that we work with, sometimes they make their presence known, and then we just need to figure it out, and really ask what's going on. But I think our relationship is more of like a partnership, a collaboration. And when we ask for help, when we ask for information, that's when we really get active with the non-physical beings. And we were both inspired in different ways, where many years ago, I had a near-death experience. And so that showed me something about how I was really a soul in a body, and I was leaving my body, going down this tunnel and realizing, oh, I'm dying, I'm leaving. And there was something in me that recognized that I wasn't done yet. I could have been if I chose that, but I had an option, and it was, I took that option to choose bringing myself back in my body. And I remember it took a tremendous amount of effort, energy to bring myself back in the body again. And then from there, I went into my healing process and came back into life. And I saw, what was really very stunning about that was that it felt so good. It was all love. It was beautiful. There wasn't any fear, any of that kind of stuff that I had thought there would have been. It was just so tranquil. And that, I think, helped me be able to work with non-physical beings and realize that so much of who we are is way beyond what we conjure up in our brains. So I did a lot of work around opening myself up to that, opening myself up artistically, spiritually, as a channel, all kinds of things, and finding that, as Gregory will go into a little bit in the slideshow, that the physical part of us is such a slight amount. We are all energy. And when we connect energetically, we have a huge wealth of resources that we tap into. And so that's very much of what we've done all these years.
Yeah.
And earlier, we have over a dozen vortexes on our land, which is where energy is moving in and out. And these are portals where a number of non-physical beings over the years, like Metatron, that archangel, has come through and worked here a lot. And so they move through these openings, portals, vortexes, and we've built geometries over them so that we can stabilize them, make sure they're life positive for human beings, and that we can draw upon them to charge all the tools that we make and work with, like our pendants and the dorjies that we talked about earlier, are charged in some of these chambers that are built on vortexes, and then it draws on all the other vortexes too.
So one of the things that we'll show you, as we'll show you some images and things from the book, is that everything is connected energetically. And the more that we're conscious of it, we grow our consciousness. We are souls embodied in a physical realm, and yet the energy is everything. So how about if we get started and show them a few of the slides and things about the book? Can we do
Okay,
that?
we can do that. And I just wanted to say that some of the energy that we're directing from some of the mountains here in the area, we direct it down the front range of the Colorado mountains through Colorado Springs, where Nikolai Tesla worked. And that's why he was working down there, because he was working with this energetic flow. He understood how Earth dynamics work. And that's where he was going to use that potential to deliver free energy to everyone. But that went against some of his financial backers, so that never came about.
Yes, he was ahead of his time. And fortunately, I feel like he's still working with many people here energetically, and I'm sure with you as well. So yeah, we appreciate his work so much.
That's true.
Yeah, we have gone through a lot of the important numbers like 3, 6, and 9 that he worked with. It's there in the book, and we really start going into it much more deeply.
Mhm.
But with our new book, which if people want to get a free chapter on consciousness from our book, the first chapter, the only thing they have to do is just go to iConnect, the number 2, and then all.com/chapter, and they can get a free chapter if they would like. And then we are selling copies of our book that are signed if they want to order one directly from us. Otherwise, it's on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, everywhere out there. But as human beings, have we talked before about how we're like an iceberg, I think, and we are just that little physical part that's seen at the very, very bottom. And energy from source wants to come through all these different dimensional levels into the physical where we are. And it's like pumping oxygen down to the human being at the bottom of the ocean. That's the energy that's keeping us alive. That's what comes from soul all the time. If it's cut off, we leave. We are no longer in physical incarnation. And so what we need to understand is that all the difficulties, diseases that we experience come about from different blockages in this lifeline of energy. And the electromagnetic pollution affects that, stress, negative emotions, the judgments and beliefs we have, the toxins, all of that is stopping that flow of energy. And these are all images from our book that I'm sharing with you. So when we start getting into like some of the spirals in a nautilus shell, in a sunflower head, broccoli, even a galaxy, this is reflecting the same geometries that we're built on as human beings. And so that's from our DNA. The way it's constructed is working with these relationships to the physical body. And that's what this caliper does, is it measures those dimensions where my middle finger to the bottom, the top to the bottom, is in that relationship. My hand, the finger to my whole hand, my hand to my elbow, and my head to my navel, to my feet. this is how everything organic is constructed. And so what we go into in our book is how those numbers work, how that works, and how other things like, for example, the planets and here we have the platonic solids. There are only 5 of them. And Plato, they were named after Plato because he worked with them and talked about them in his dissertation, the Timaeus. And here you can see that 3 of them add up to the diameter of the sun. When you take the number of degrees on each surface, multiply it by 100, you get the diameter of the sun. The next 4 equal the diameter of the earth when you take the degrees and turn it into miles. And the cube goes into exactly the diameter of the moon. So then when we start playing with them individually, like the diameter of the moon and the diameter of the earth, when you add that up, you create this geometry over here on the right, which is what we have sitting right here. And that geometry is not only working with the way the moon and the earth dance together, but it's also working with this same phi ratio we were just talking about in the way these sides and everything relate to each other. It's in phi ratio relationships. And that shows up in this geometry above us too. And that geometry has the same number of degrees as adding the diameter of the moon to the diameter of the sun. And so here is that geometry down here. And when we talk about the Great Pyramid at Giza, it has the same angles on the face as the individual angles of this geometry. So it's like the builders of the pyramid, there are many things that they drew upon to bring more energy into the structure. And so we're working with those same principles to create those kinds of energies in this piece, which we call the unity grid. And this one is the sphere of health, because it's bringing us into a relationship with the way the earth and the moon dance, the way the body is formed, the way everything organic down to our DNA works. So when we bring these geometries into our environment, what starts to happen is we start to vibrate with those same frequencies. We start to resonate. And that's how the universe works, through harmonic resonance. It's like taking a C tuning fork, and then you play a C tone, and the tuning fork starts to vibrate. It's picking up on that energy. And when we pick up on the energy of the universe and how it's unveiling itself, then we can start to harmonically resonate as well. And what that does for us, that's what you talked about when you expressed some of the experiences you had, feeling some of the stuff and picking it up. When you feel that energy, and then when you're around it for any period of time, it's like naturally being in nature. And what we've created here on our land with all the animals and the birds and the water and just the sounds going on, it's like making us one with all that is. And we can do that energetically wherever we are. if we're in front of our computer in the middle of the city, it's a way of constantly being refreshed from something bigger than ourselves.
So that's been our life's work
Yeah.
to create tools to facilitate this higher connection. And I think it's so important right now because I think there's an urgency with where we're at. We're going through a big shift. The energies are very, very dynamic. And for us to be able to both ascend into higher consciousness and also be here in a very grounded way is tricky. And so that's really what I see with the value, what sacred geometry does, because it is the pathway for grounding energy into this physical dimension with the higher principles, higher consciousness. It's just an amazing vehicle for supporting us in that journey. And so we wanted to show you also that I know you're very familiar with this. One of the things that we've put a lot of our energy into designing is something that's a pendant. And the reason that we wanted to create a pendant was because with all the geometries, we wanted to make sure that there was something that could be on our bodies all the time. So it wasn't just having to sit underneath of something or be in an environment with a particular geometry, but instead you can take it with you. And what was really amazing to me when I first started working with these pendants was that the quality of connection was astounding. The heightening of my intuition, the feeling of being just so much more aware of my purpose. What it did was I stopped procrastinating, which was wonderful because I used to be a pretty good procrastinator. And once I started wearing these pendants and being connected, it was radically different. There was no reason to procrastinate. There was a reason instead to be here now. And so to be present in the moment. Something else that it does is it enables that sense of being able to take a breath and not react on automatic pilot, but instead reach into the reservoir of higher connection that we all really have access to. So I started wearing the pendant, and we started putting it out to people, and then the stories that would come back were just phenomenal. Things from, just like real physical things, like this woman had been working, she was a real estate agent. She'd been working on a big project for about 1.5 years, and it just kept getting stopped. It wasn't all coming together. Within a week of getting the pendant and wearing it, everything came together. And what that really shows us is that there is this issue that a lot of people will say, oh, I just thought about somebody and the phone rang and it was them. And we think that that's odd. The real thing is that serendipity is natural. That's the way that we're really supposed to operate. Our consciousness it's created so that it works with the physical. It works with being able to create relationship with everything around us. So this helps with all of that. It's amazing how it helps with relationships where people can just be there in a more genuine way with each other. And that makes all the difference in relationships. I think, over and over again, I've just really been thrilled with hearing about how people feel different. And about maybe 1.5 years ago, I think it was, we felt like we needed to create the next level of the pendant. This one is now called the Heart and Soul Companion, to identify more with our soul vibration, and particularly with bringing in the feminine energy. We've always wanted to balance that out, but I think we're particularly in a place right now where supporting that energetically really works for everyone, masculine and feminine. So this pendant, Gregory can tell you a little bit more about it, is designed with a different set of geometries on the face, a few other different antenna systems on the inside. Not only is this something that works with the geometries you can see, inside we have over 35 different antenna systems that are designed to support those essential connections. So it's a pretty amazing piece, and I love it. You know, it really is something that in the morning I'm thrilled to be able to put it on and can just appreciate that support and connection that it offers to me.
And one of the reasons that it has that softer feminine aspect is that the geometry we've put on the front is this geometry, which is something called a cube octahedron, but it's been put into a spherical form. And it's those curves that take it into the feminine aspect and the smoothness. And also on the face, if you look at the face, that's the one on the left, there are two faces. That's the star face on the left and the earth face on the right. This is two sides of one pendant. So what we've done is we take the projections of a geometry where from this perspective, and there are, you know, two more perspectives. When you get different perspectives of a geometry flat on a surface, projecting it in something called a right angle orthogonal projection, you can capture the energy of a three-dimensional geometry. So we're able to get three-dimensional energy going through these two-dimensional antenna systems. And the things that happen is it starts shifting people's energy into a higher vibrational realm. And sometimes they don't notice it, but stories come back like the grandmother who said, my grandkids used to run away from me and now they crawl all over me. Or the older gentleman who said that his wife used to yell at him all the time, but now that they're wearing the pendants, she doesn't, and that's what he loves. And then she overheard us and said, I don't have to. So people's energy shifts when these kinds of energies come onto their body. And we've put this same geometry on the end of this form that I think you got to experience when you were in, or when we were all in Florida. And the incredible thing is this softens the energy of this form so that it really is coming from a divine place. And what we found is by just lying down and placing this on the body and just holding it in certain positions, what happens is your higher guidance, the guidance of certain divine beings that are watching over some of these tools and different elements here on the planet start coming in and being able to do work on us where we don't even have to think about it. We just work with having this on our body and they start coming through. It's a vortex, like the vortexes on our land, where it makes it easier for divine involvement into the physical to come about. And it starts to shift things within our bodies that over time, as we get older, it's more and more challenging to hold those spaces of youth that some of these energies can start bringing us.
Well, I think another part of where we're at right now is, we've been, feeling like if something's going to get done, we have to do it. And I think what is really different right now is instead of pushing, trying, trying to make things happen, this is a time of allowing. It is the more feminine quality of allowing. And that's not as familiar to us in the creation process that we've been used to. So I find that using these tools like what Gregory just showed you is teaching us how to show up and allow ourselves to be co-creators, allow ourselves to work with the energies and know that we don't have to force anything. The more that we open those channels of allowance, things come together. And, it really is a real different way that energy is expressing itself now. So I don't know about you, Waxela, but there's a lot of lessons that I get, in these times that keep reminding me that allowing is so much more expansive. Because when we're pushing, it's like there's a part of us that feels like, well, it's not going to happen unless I force it. And allowing is saying, I am open to this. I am receiving this. I am grateful for this experience. And that's a real different posture that I feel that we've come into this time with, and that we're learning how to use in our lives in more and more ways.
Yeah, I feel like Western culture has largely kind of forgotten how to receive. It's do and go and hustle and, make things happen. And, I remember in Florida when in Orlando getting to experience the Dorje, is that what you called it?
Georgie,
Dorji. It's such a power piece. Just to look at it is like transformational, but then to get to hold it, I didn't have long because I think there was a line of people when I had a chance to hold it. But just for a few minutes, just to hold it, you could really feel the power, the sacredness, how it just was ready to align and help me get attuned to my own higher frequency. And that is, if we all were out of doors and in nature, 18 hours a day, we probably wouldn't need, tools so much like this, but we're not. We're inside, we're in front of computers, we're busy, we're doing things. And just to have something, like the pendant and like your tools to help us align and remember and center and focus and ground and get back into presence. That's what's so powerful. And for me, I could just feel that calling me back to presence. And I love that feeling.
It does make such a difference to be present with life. You find out that there's so much going on that you can discover through presence. And like you were saying, we've gotten into pushing so much effort in the doing. And when we're being, we can only do that when we're really present, and so much help shows up when we are in our beingness. That's when spirit can work through us. That's when we're allowing for the divine to dance with us And that's when the discovery can happen. So
That's when we're in resonance with all that is. And, that's really what we're here to create, is
Mhm.
that level of resonance, as opposed to resonating with the things that have been blocking the full realm of who we are. So there's a lot of distractions out there. We all have to be honest about that. And yet we are amazing and divine beings. So we're in that time now together to recognize that that resonance, that harmonic, and to lead our lives, make choices, and allow ourselves to receive the life that our souls really showed up here for. And so, that makes me excited, because I feel like, I used to always say, we signed up for this. And I feel like this particular time is really spotlighting what we've signed up for. And we have all so many gifts creatively. And when we work together in unity, it's extraordinary. And it allows this dance to really all come together.
Mm.
So one of the things we wanted to offer everyone here is that we will offer you 15% discount on the pendants, on the Dorji, and we'll give Waxela a coupon code that you can use. So it'll make it really simple if this is something that you're drawn to. And the other thing is, with our book, we'd love you to check out our website at that page that gives you the free chapter. Start reading it, start working with it. What we're doing now, we're getting on a lot of podcasts, and we're also creating kind of like a little book club with people who are part of our email list. And we'll go deeper into what each one of the chapters says in our book. We'll read it, we'll explain it, we'll answer your questions, things like that. So we'll be doing that for a number of months until we've explored as much as we can with that. So it's a fun time that we're in, and we're really just very, very blessed that we have friends like Waxela that invite us to be able to share what we've been doing all these many years.
Thank you. I love your work, and I know I've had you on in the past. The people who are interested in what I share always love what you have to say and share, and it's such a uplifting experience for people to hear you speak and everything that you show. And I've also, I have the older pendant. Actually have it right here. It's got the green, really beautiful still. I need to get a new chain for it. But I love it. And I've heard so many wonderful reports from people that got this one, which is what you had when I had you on last. And now I have a couple friends that have the newer one too, and they love that. And I know you just continue to upgrade your work. So for anyone that's interested, thank you for that generous offer of 15% off and the free book chapter, so you can at least get acquainted with their book and see if it's something you want to read the whole thing, which I would recommend to anyone that's interested in sacred geometry.
Wonderful, wonderful. We really appreciate you doing that, and we look forward to whatever comes next. This is an evolution that it would be nice if we all had this really precise roadmap that told us, okay, now you're going to do, and you're going to make this turn here, and then you're going to go, but we don't. So we're here playing together, learning from each other, enjoying the ride that we're on, and knowing that it's not just happening to us. We are co-creating this. And the more we recognize that this isn't just some random crazy universe that we're at the mercy of, but instead this is this absolutely extraordinary creation that is very precise in its rhythm and pattern and energy and all of what it does, the cycles, they're dependable. We can see how they work. And the more that we resonate with this creation and are a part of it, then we evolve in a beautiful way of how we chose to be here. So it's a magical time for us all.
Indeed. Thank you both so much for sharing, and I will have the links so people can visit your site and take advantage of the coupon and see more of your work. And I appreciate you so much. Thank you for all that you share and all that you do and the wonderful book that you've got out now. And I look forward to the next time we get to meet in person as well.
Good.
Thank you.
Us too.
Same. Come visit us in Colorado. We'd love that.
I'd love to. I just might take you up on that.
Great, great.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. All right. Thanks to everyone
you.
watching and listening. Go visit Gail and Gregory's website, and we'll see you the next time. Namaste.
Namaste.